Hello everyone, I'm not sure whether you are connected yet. Yes, I can see some of my friends are joining in already. I'll just wait for a few more seconds for more people to join, and I can see some familiar faces, of course. Thank you, my friends, and you know who you are. I'm going to invite in a few seconds my wonderful guest for this evening, our dear Nicolina. Let me see whether she's somewhere here. Should be. And we'll start our exciting episode today. Not yet. Just 1 second. I haven't. Nicolina, you have to request for me to invite you and to accept you, because I can see that you're joined, but I don't see you yet requesting. Let me try again. We'll give her a few seconds. I know it sometimes could be challenging. It's always challenging for me, no matter how many times I've been doing it, to either connect or to accept or in general manage the technology and social media per se. So I am very, very patient with all these things. Just see whether one more time. No. Just 1 second. I think Nicolina. I believe I managed to invite her, so let's see for it. Here she is. She's going to.
Olga.
Yes. Nicolina, I don't.
There we go.
Yes, but
There we go.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nicolina. Thank you for managing in this space, and I'm sure it's much less complicated than any other spaces that you put yourself in. But thank you very much. You can hear me well. You can see me well.
I can't see you at all, but I hear you well.
You can't see me at all. You should see
No.
me because you're very, very clear.
It's split screen. The top says events by yoga, and the bottom one is me. But
I can see you. And would you like to disconnect and connect one more time?
okay, I can try doing that. I can try doing it from another device.
And request for, my apology, everyone, but we'll try one more time. So, Nicolina, just disconnect and.
Would you like to disconnect? Okay, I'm going to try from another device. It's coming clean later. I can try doing it from another device.
Okay, you have to talk from your mobile phone. It's not okay. I'm really sorry, but it happens, and I hope you have a little bit few extra minutes. We do have a very, very full hour today, and you know, I had to restrain myself to compile so many subjects into fewer, because Nicolina is incredible, and she has an incredible journey, and I would like to touch on most of the things that you would be interested in to hear, but I guess we just need to be a little bit let me see. I'm trying again. There's no sound. Here you go, Nicolina. Can you see
there? Me? Yes, perfect. Thank you. Sorry about that. I mean, someone who loves tech, I'm sorry that I had a bit of a technical issue there.
Perfect. Nicolina, also, if you can adjust a little bit your sound, you're a little bit muffled. Can you put it on maximum?
Okay.
Or maybe just talk to them.
Okay, I'm wearing my earbuds, so it should be okay. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay because I'm not with the AirPods. I talk directly to the phone, so maybe.
Okay.
No, I can't hear you.
There we go. Is that better?
Okay, yes, I think so. Anyway, well, sorry for that, everyone, but I think it's definitely worth the wait. Thank you for joining me this evening, Nicolina, and thank you for all the people around the world, people from US, people from Europe, and of course people in Asia and Singapore to join us all this evening. I will say a few words about conversations with Olga because some of you might have joined us only the first time, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but I do this a little short introduction for every episode, in case somebody, as I said, is the first one listening to us. I also will say a few words, Nicolina, about you, and just to present you in a very, very short manner, and then we just take it from there. Okay? So, as I mentioned, Conversations with Olga is a IGTV YouTube series that I started during the COVID, during the circuit breaker, with the goal to introduce so many incredible people and friends and personalities I've met through my career and through my life to the multicultural Singaporean and global community. And the goal of it is to entice people to learn about different cultures, about different careers, about different life paths, and how people fulfill their dreams. My main mission and hope for the series is to inspire and cultivate more diverse and more multicultural and inclusive communities around the world. Tonight we are on episode number 44, and all the episodes are available on my IGTV at Advanced by Olga, as well as on the YouTube on the Olga series. So it's an honor for me to have my guest for episode number 44, my dear friend for many, many years, Nicolina, an astronaut in training, life coach, and so much more. Nicolina, as I said, I'll introduce you a little bit, and
Thank
then
you, Olga.
we will move into the conversation. Nicolina is currently training to be an astronaut with Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic. She first started as a model, as obviously you can see it from her gorgeous self, and then become a visionary founder and managing director of IT corporations during the 19th tech boom, developing unparalleled foresight and innovative ideas. After that, she transitioned to properties development and is now also a life coach. She's a single mom, cancer survivor, and an extraordinary person, and my very, very dear friend who has overcome incredible challenges. We'll be talking about your commitment, Nicolina, to turning adversities into strengths, your experiences as a woman in a completely male-dominated domains, and of course, training to go to space. I'm completely in full admiration of you, my dear. So thank you again for joining us. So I guess, not that many people, you've accomplished so much, and I'm sure, to be honest with you, how to start. That's why I really had to compile so many different elements into a broader session. So, but we'll try to talk about the more properly profound and important things about your life and what you've accomplished. Well, to be honest with you, I'm sure, me included, so many viewers have never had a chance to hear from an astronaut in training. So let's start there. How did it even begin? What happened that made you think of training to be an astronaut? It's sometimes, I believe most of us just know about it either from the movies or from the papers or from some other information, but we haven't met, most of us haven't met anybody who actually been doing it. So please share with us.
Oh, thank you, Olga. What a beautiful introduction. I'm very flattered and I'm honored to be here tonight. So thank you so much for hosting this and inviting me on this. It's such an honor and pleasure to be here. Thank you. I get asked this question all the time, and every time I have to think about it. So I like to go back to my childhood of being born in Scotland, and always as a child, I used to look up to the stars. And in those days, we had no light pollution, so we had the northern lights quite frequently too. And I always dreamed of kind of getting away. I mean, I come from a place of trauma and not a really great upbringing, which we will probably go into a little bit if we have time. So from that, my escapism was always to run away to the stars. So the stars was always something that was just beyond reach, but something I always wanted. And then as I got older, when I was 14 years old, they had the first teacher who was going to go to space, who was on the Challenger. And so I got all excited thinking, this is amazing. They're going to have commercial people going on. You don't have to work for a government. This is fantastic. But we all know how the Challenger ended up, unfortunately. So she didn't make it back, and a lot of people stopped talking about how exciting space was. So it was a good awakening to realize that there are dangers to things that seem from an outside perspective very exciting. So I can understand why people would not want to pursue that kind of avenue in their career. But then as I got older, in 1998, they built the International Space Station. And in 2000, when I was, ripe old age of 26, in 2000, they finally put together the International Space Station, and they had a cosmonaut and an American astronaut go together and shake hands. Now, for me, that blew my mind. I was like, how are we having wars on this planet and everybody's fighting all the time? And I was always living in a place of like constant trauma and constantly running around. And I kept looking up and thinking, how is that possible that there's no boundaries out there? There's nothing that stops people. And so for me, I was so excited about it. I was like, how do I become part of that? Like, how do I stop people fighting? How do I like make peace with everyone? How do I get part of this? So the International Space Station started doing a commercial program in 2001. And to date, they've had 7 astronauts who paid their way to go to the International Space Station. But out of the 7, only 1 is a woman. And that's the new one.
Nicolina, and I will particularly stop on that point.
Yeah.
Further on at the conversation.
So for me, I was very drawn to all of that. And then it's a long story. I'm going to try and condense this down as much as I can. So I was flying helicopters at the time. I was doing a lot of tomboy stuff. I was very interested in going into that genre, but I knew I wasn't going to work for a government. So I had to try and find a way in somehow. So I was introduced to Virgin Galactic through another dear friend of mine. And through them, kind of my space story started to blossom.
Wonderful. And you basically covered already in so many questions that I've had, and I wanted to ask you, which is wonderful. So we'll just elaborate on it a little bit. And what is your main goal in wanting to travel to space? You told us how it all started and what motivated you, but what is it that attracts you so much? And I also will talk a little bit, of course, about the fear, because you spoke just now about the Challenger. So I'm particularly interested in the fear, but we'll touch on it a bit later.
But for me, I think I want to, as a parent, and I raised my child on my own as a single parent, I think it's really important to give her something that she's proud of and determined of. And then it's like a ripple of that. I decided that not only my daughter, I want her school to be proud of me. I want this country to be proud of me. I want everybody around to be proud of me. And I kept thinking, why are there not more women like me who want to do what I'm doing? And because it's hard and it's challenging, but then I thought, but then that's even more reason I have to do it. Like, that's the reason, like, there has to be more women like me. There has to be people out there who want to go to space and want to do something different, because men judge all the time, and I'm not going to just tar them all, but it becomes a point of where it becomes challenging constantly, where it's like, oh yeah, you're a model, so off she goes. And no one sits and talks to me and asks me, like, so what are you doing? Like, oh my God, you're an astronaut in training. That's phenomenal. So I think it's really important to break that glass ceiling. And the less I see women going up, the more determined I become. Because, to date, there's only been 70 women who've gone to space out of the 500-600 men who have. So we need to create more women up there, just so young girls can look up and say, hey, I want to be like her one day. And that's not a bad thing.
Thank you. And we will talk a little bit about male-dominated society and how challenging and how expensive it is actually to make this decision and to pursue this path and to fly into space and get it trained. But for now, I would like just to mention that you, to our listeners, that you've been a big advocate for research in STEM, which promotes curiosity, and you are extremely curious person, as well as logical thinking. Just for people who might not know what STEM is, STEM is a common abbreviation for 4 very closely connected areas of study, which is science, technology, engineering and mathematics. So perhaps you can explain in your own few words this subject matter and your personal connection to it, and what
Absolutely.
inspired you to actually to focus on it.
Absolutely. So I talk at schools now, and we call it a mix between STEM and STEAM. So we're now incorporating arts in it. So science, technology, engineering, arts, and maths. And I believe that that's really important because art is such a big peripheral that people underestimate, again, like everything else. So I think that becomes inclusive of it. When I was a child, I was fortunate to become assistant placing scheme in a very great school that had a great science lab. And it was an all-girls school. So there was no inhibitions of letting girls do what they wanted to do. I mean, they did try to push me towards the, you know, the home education, baking and sewing instead, but I was always determined. And whenever the teachers couldn't find me, you'd find me in the science lab trying to mix things together and try and work out how things were. So I think it's really important that someone promotes that and encourages it. Like I didn't feel as a child I was encouraged enough by it. And I feel now it's really important to advocate that women can do that as well as men. It's maybe a male dominated industry, but let's change that. Let's spend some time breaking the norms and just creating something new. I mean, it's a new era. We should be changing this now.
Yeah. And I'm so happy to hear that now the art is going to be incorporated or is being incorporated in it. This is incredible. And I've been actually today, during the lunchtime, I've been talking how I've always been promoting art, I think, because it was so natural for me to be involved and to be immersed into art on different levels since I was a child. So the more it goes into the universe and into the world, I think the kinder the world will be. So that's wonderful.
Absolutely. I mean, I was just chatting last week to a young child at school, and he was crying, and he was just saying, oh, but I draw pictures. I'm not science-minded. And I said, but can you draw a picture? And he's like, yeah, I love drawing pictures. And I said, well, if you draw a picture of a shuttle, that could be the architecture of what we build later in life, and that could be what goes to the moon. And he was running around the school with this picture in his hand going, one day this could be the rocket that someone goes with. And so, it makes my heart sing.
So now let me go back to your training and to your association with two incredible, very powerful companies. One is Blue Origin and another one is Virgin Galactic. And Virgin is a massive company, of course, that has excellent services and transport, not only in flights, but I'm sure some of you have taken the trains and through UK and Europe, and it's just such a huge conglomerate. It seems to be quite natural for me to explore the space travel, and it's obviously the world's first commercial space line, correct? Now, Blue Origin was founded by Jeff Bezos, and of course, since Amazon does worldwide shipping and it's so much more, once again, it's a venture also that comes at no surprise. How does it work when you actually train with two separate organizations? Are they in competition despite having the same goal of sustainability and exploring how we can maximize our resources, or do they work together? And how does this whole thing gels together?
That's a big question. I don't think currently they're working together on any projects. It would be nice to see in the future that they did at some point, but currently they're very different enterprises. It's a bit like asking Google and Yahoo if they would work together in synergy. I mean, back in the days in IT, it wasn't really something thought of. And I think it's very similar with SpaceX, Virgin Galactic, and Blue Origin. They're very separate individual enterprises, and they work in different ways. I mean, Virgin Galactic was the very first one to set up in 2004. And when Richard Branson followed his passion, I mean, he didn't get to launch until 2021. So it took that long before they started creating passengers to go up into space. Whereas Blue Origin are looking at something different. They're looking at now shuttles that are going to go towards the moon. They're looking at building a different space station. I mean, it's a whole different category. They're not the same at all. But when it comes to training, I think Virgin Galactic are very on point of ensuring that their crew are space ready. So they invite us to start training as soon as you sign up and you get a ticket and you buy a ticket, or however you get involved in Virgin Galactic. They encourage you to immediately start doing your training. So they ask you to be, healthy and aware. There's certain criteria you have to adhere to.
And I will go into a little bit more details a little bit later about the training process, because I'm sure everybody wants to know how does this whole thing happen. And both companies actually, their values and business objectives come into play when for the space training programs?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, health and safety is the biggest priority. I mean, currently, Virgin Galactic have had 6 launches since they've been up and running, but now they're delaying it because they're changing the shuttle to be something a little bit more safer and swifter and faster. So that's going to be on hold as from next year. And Blue Origin, unfortunately, had an anomaly with one of their shuttles. Thankfully, payload only, no passengers or crew on board. And so they're waiting for the FAA to give them the new license to launch. So when that happens, then
Got it. And the ventures into space, as we're all aware, and we assume and we know, cannot be completely altruistic. It's extremely expensive, I'm sure, process. And what are your thoughts on commercializing space travel? And it seems quite sad to me that probably, I assume, I might be wrong, only wealthy individuals will be able to afford such a magical experience of this kind of a magnitude.
So, Olga, let me ask you a question. Have you been in a plane this year?
Yes.
Have you been on maybe perhaps more than one airplane this year?
Yes.
Okay, so in 1914, when airplanes first took off, everybody turned around and said, oh, we don't like that. They're quite dangerous. Oh, we don't like that. They're only for the rich and the wealthy. And then commercialism came through, and it was originally only the rich and wealthy, but they spent the money to expand the technology to ensure that everybody else had an opportunity to fly. And I know the ethos that Richard Branson has is to ensure that space is capable for everybody. Everybody can go to space at some point. So they want to commercialize it with any way possible that people will pay their money. It's not just, and I agree with you, a little bit of it became, oh, it's a rich white man's jolly. And there was a lot of tags about it, and a lot of people were not happy. But I believe they're enterprise. These are the space adventurers who are creating opportunities for other people. It takes 1 or 2 adventurers to get out there, create a path, build a Broadway out there that people can walk on. We need to go there first to ensure it's safe for everybody else to then go up.
So it's incredible. You are actually the pioneer of this whole activation. It's mind-blowing, Nicolina, really. Yeah. And I would like to move back a little bit into the who runs these businesses, because like most of the big businesses are mostly male-dominated. And you touched a little bit just now when you spoke about the number of women in this field. Do you see many more women joining in and basically?
Yes. I mean, finally we do. I think. Yeah, I feel that more women have now it's made it a lot more approachable. I think, people like Elon have made space very sexy. Everybody's just suddenly got excited about doing anything to do with space. They had Inspiration 4 that went in 2021 that had, two females were in there along with 2 men. And, Dr. Sang Proctor is an amazing woman who's a huge advocate for STEM and a huge advocate for this. I believe that there's so many more women now as pioneers in it, because I feel that the opportunity is now available for us. It wasn't before. You have to remember when space started in the 50s and 60s, it was very much a male-dominated industry. But whereas now, I think people are opening up their mind to the opportunities that we can do that too.
And do you think not do you think, how is it possible to basically for anyone to sign in?
Yes.
What was the process like for you? And how does this whole thing work? How does it happen?
I mean, anybody can sign up. They're now even doing, and I'm not going to promote them because they're not paying me to promote them, but Galactic are now having a master class for those who are interested in learning more about the technology system, the infrastructure, their environmentalness about it, because that is a hot topic right now with everyone. All of those things come in a master class. You can sign up to that. And these are people who are excited about space, but might not be fortunate enough to have the means to go there, but they want to explore more or hear more about it. And they also get invited to opportunities to see the rocket, meet the engineers, see the team, talk to the pilots. So I think that's opening up more opportunities for everyone too. Again, it takes away that whole rich man kind of scenario, and it becomes opportunity for every single person to do it.
But I guess the process itself, the application process is quite rigorous.
Not initially. It depends if you want to go.
Mental and intellectual abilities, I suppose. What's the routine like?
Well, initially, it depends which scenario you want to go into. I mean, obviously, as a helicopter pilot, I wanted to be a pilot for them. But unfortunately, given that they only employ ex-military fighter pilots, I mean, I feel like I'm in really safe hands, which is great. And I haven't flown 700,000 hours. So for me, I understand that that's your criteria. As a passenger, you don't have to. You can choose, as if you're buying a ticket to Virgin Galactic these days, Their criteria is not as staunch as it was originally, but when you watch Richard Branson do his first flight, he was making sure he was doing marathons and tracks and trails and everything else. So mentally, physically, and emotionally, you're prepared for it. Whereas Blue Origin, they do a call-in once a month. So they do a tag call-in. They make sure that emotionally you're ready, that you have all your ducks in a row in case anything happens, which is a real, you have to think about that emotionally too. I mean, they have all that set up. They have emotionally, and then they have this checklist of the physical stuff they would prefer you to do. I mean, it's not a criteria that you absolutely have to. I know that they're willing to take on passengers who are not as physically able, but it really is a choice on what you want to achieve through the flight.
Mm-hmm. So is there a daily routine of some sort? And that if there is a daily routine for you, for example, are there certain do's and don'ts?
Yes. So there's a team of us
for so many years and so many times, and you are always the star of any event, my event or where we attended together. So I just want to know if there is anything that, because of this training, is definitely no anymore at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on when you're given your launch date. So it depends on the criteria for it. I mean, I'm on standby just in case I get a call to be told. I mean, I put my name in the hat that if someone pulls out, I'm willing to jump at it, you know, at such short notice to get on a flight. Whereas most people, if they bought their ticket and they've been waiting a long time, they want everyone to be there, and it's a big exhibition for them and a big celebration, rightly so as well. But for me, I'm keeping myself in peak condition to make sure that I'm ready at the drop of a hat. So yeah, I run every morning. I do Pilates 3 times a week. I go to yoga 3 times a week. I try to cut down on the partying, but sometimes it's Christmas spirit, so you'll catch me with a glass of champagne once in a while. Can't be helped, but yeah.
And how much lead time do you get when you're ready to travel to space? Or what do they tell you?
So generally speaking, Virgin Galactic will give you a number. So everybody always asks, well, if you meet someone who's a future astronaut from Virgin Galactic, like, what's your number? What's your number? That's the first thing they ask. So you're in alignment with numbers. They are shuffling it around a bit more because unfortunately some people have got old. You know, as I said, it's been around since 2004. So last 20 years, some of the other people choose not to fly anymore because things might have changed in circumstance that they don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. Whereas Blue Origin, my opportunity came very differently. So I was space ready and trained already. So I got a phone call from Blue Origin and I was sitting down, I'll never forget it. I was sitting down in my house in London and I get this call and it's like, Nicolina, something's come up. What are you doing next month? And I'm like, what do you mean, what am I doing next month? And they said, a seat's come available. So would you like to fly with us to Blue Origin? Would you like the seat? And I'm just like, what? And it was such short notice, but I was so blown away. I was like, yes, absolutely. And so, but most people, that's an anomaly. It just so happened that I was in the perfect position. I knew some of the other crew who was flying. They had basically said, we've trained with her, we know her, we feel safe with her, we're happy for her to fly. I called them independently too to ensure that. So yeah, I was really excited about that. But normally, if you're buying a ticket with a private enterprise, I'd say maybe a couple of years. Well, the lead time is asking how long's a piece of string. It can be, 2 months. It can be 20 years.
Oh my God. So when you receive a call like this, besides obvious excitement, do you have any fears? And if you do have fears, how do you deal with these fears?
Well, it came at such an opportune moment. So it literally came 2 weeks before my 50th birthday. So it was almost like the gods had heard me saying, I want to go to space. What is happening? Why is this so delayed? And so I got offered the opportunity and I just, of course I got scared. I had to, I said yes to them, but then I said to them, I need to run this by my daughter first. So my daughter and I have had many a conversation. So I signed up maybe 15 years ago for the Mars program with Buzz Aldrin. And so at that time, she was like, oh my God, mommy, she was so young. She's like, mommy, I don't understand. That's a one-way ticket. And I laughed and I said, if I'm ever chosen, I said, they won't be flying for the next 20, 30 years. I'll be too old to be chosen. But the fact that I'm on the list now is such an honor for me. So I'm not going to say no to that. So she's fully aware of it. I mean, she's watched me do all this space stuff for the last 10, 15 years that now it's like water for duck back. She hears about it. She's like, oh, another space launch, another this space adventure, more training. She's used to it.
Used to it, and what does she think about your adventure?
Well, when she was
supporting
when she was a teenager.
Sorry?
Yeah, so when she was a teenager, she was embarrassed. Every teenager is embarrassed about their mother. And particularly when the school asks you to go and talk at the school. So she was like, don't you dare, this is embarrassing, you can't come to the school and talk. So I made a point of never going to her school, but other schools to talk about STEM and women in space. So now she's embracing it. Now she's at university, and I think her friends are always excited, saying, when's your mom coming to visit? We want to ask her some questions. So when that happens, I think now she leans into it.
Wonderful. And that leads me to a few questions, so perhaps a little bit of a conversation about family and your childhood trauma. And please tell us a little bit, whatever you want to open up. I know that you're a proud single mom. There are so many of us who were raised by single parents. I'm one of them as well, and I'm a single mom. So how did being a single parent shape you?
Okay, first and foremost, I want to say what an amazing job you do as a parent. I listened to your son's podcast, and I am so proud of you. He is such an amazing person. So well done, you.
Thank you.
It's been hard for me because I didn't have parents to bring me up. So it's a very long story, and I'll keep it very short and sweet. And maybe perhaps one day we'll talk about it more in depth. But I'm a child of trauma, both emotionally, physically, and sexually during my childhood. And I bounced around different homes all the time through my childhood. My mother was an alcoholic. My father was an absent parent. He was working offshore on the oil rigs. And so he was away for months at a time. We'd be back for a couple of weeks. And when he was back, there was always fights and arguments. So it was a very destructive place. I was constantly on hyper alert to ensure that, I was being protected, my brother was protected, and everything was fine. So it was not a great situation to be brought up in. I mean, there's some silver linings to that. I learned very quickly how to adapt to any situation. I learned very fast how to talk myself out of a situation. I learned very fast how to run fast out of a situation. So all these things were great silver linings to it. But yeah, it wasn't great. It wasn't a good template for me to raise my child. I mean, unfortunately, because of the way I was raised, my relationships that I went into weren't the most healthiest either. I chose toxic relationships because it was a pattern I'd been used to. But now I feel like I'm over it now. I've done a lot of work. So I feel that in space has been part of that. I mean, they've told me that I needed to work on some stuff, and I really have pushed myself forward for that, which has been amazing. And I feel that it was hard. I had no templates to be like, well, this is what a mom's supposed to do. This is what not she's supposed to do. But I think I'm doing okay. I'm sure Antonio will tell you.
Your daughter is absolutely gorgeous and smart, and I'm so proud of both of you, really. And you're a firm advocate for resilience. You are incredibly resilient, and it actually shows us that our past does not really define us. And you are the proven example of it all. So thank you for sharing, for sure. And that goes, our life correlates to our personal journeys, to our careers, and to our professional accomplishments as well. So speaking of your childhood, speaking of your childhood, I would say, you started career as a model, and look everyone, please look at how gorgeous Nicolina is. So how did this all begin? And knowing and observing this career path because of my personal career, what I'm doing as an event organizer, I know how rough and tough this could be, and these people facing long hours, some abuse, rejections, and tough life in general. So you need to look privileged and glamorous all the time. And what is your take on all this? How was it for you?
It certainly changed from when I was doing modeling. So when I was doing modeling, it was like 80s and 90s. And I mean, we had no mobile phones. We couldn't do selfies to check how our makeup was before we went into a casting. A casting is when you go to see somebody to see if you can get the job to work in a fashion show or as a fitting model. And it was always a challenge. I mean, it was just, I think because I'm quite strong-willed, I think whenever they told me I wasn't good enough, I didn't care. I still went, okay, that's fine, I'll just go to the next one. And I persevered through it because I think I was so used to rejection anyway that it wasn't an issue for me. So I just kept passing through, and I'd go, the agents would be like, oh, we'll send you here instead. And I look back now and I wonder how, most of the girls I've spoke to that have, succeeded in modeling, I wondered how they did it too. But it wasn't a very conducive place back in the day. I like the fact that now things are more transparent. People talk about how some of the fashion industry can be a little bit on the seedy side. I mean, in my head, I'm a huge believer of having mentors. even alive or dead. I mean, if you read about them, read biographies, do everything else. And so for me, it was Coco Chanel. So Coco Chanel was such an inspiration that she was so headstrong that no matter what people said, no matter what people, whatever they were doing, she would just persevere and go forward and do her own thing. You know, she was pulling on trousers and jumping on horses when women just weren't doing those things. And I felt that I could just pioneer that. I just thought, okay, that's fine. I mean, the great attribute of it was I got to travel. You know, ended up in a, you know, I would probably not have ended up being in Asia if I weren't being sent to Hong Kong to go and model out there. And so for me, that was a big kind of take in my life. It was, you know, it was a great thing. I wouldn't advocate for everybody to do it. I think there's everybody now. So.
It's tough, but, you know, you're obviously, as I said, extremely resilient and very strong-hearted and strong-minded person who deals with fears as well as you do. And how did you move from a modeling career into such a successful journey through the domains of technology and real estate?
Yeah, I mean, it was just model turned technopreneur was what they called me at one point when they were me.
Right.
Yeah, so I've always been a bit of a geek. I've always liked technology. I mean, I had a computer. I always had like ZX Spectrum when they came out. I managed to get myself a hands on it, and I managed to, you know, unscrew everything and look at how the buttons worked and I never mastered coding, which I regret a little bit. I'm trying to learn a little bit of that now, thanks to ChatGPT is helping me, which I love. So I'm learning a little bit of that. But in those days, I was always inquisitive and I was wanting to learn. So people were always saying, hey, if you want to learn this, okay, we can show you, we can do whatever. And because I knew being a model, you get to meet a lot of successful people, a lot of rich people. And because of that, I heard about a lot of tech companies. And of course, tech back in those days was still a little bit frowned upon. And because I learned to know these people, learn about the industry, I managed to kind of wangle my way in. And then people would be like, oh, we have this idea, what do you think? And they'd ask my opinion. And I'd be like, well, I don't think you should do this because I know that person wouldn't invest in it. You need to rebrand it this way and they'll invest. And they're like, great. So I just kind of got swept into it. I mean, it's a progression of one thing. I literally, my career in life has been tumbled in. I've never said, this is what I'm doing. This is my projection. I'm going to go laterally or like straight away vertically. It's always been tumbling down. It's like I went suddenly from doing all the modeling to then suddenly I was managing director of an IT company and flown off to Google before Google is who they are now. I mean, all these things were really great experiences. And yeah, I mean, back in those days, it was a lot more easier, I think, than it is now.
Also, you know, Nicolina, your immense curiosity has no boundaries. It's so obvious. The completely huge diapasonal differences of your life's journey that you've been involved in and accomplished so many things. It's really, really extremely rare. And besides that, you have graduated, and I will tell this to our listeners, from Coach U in 2003. Utilize obviously your wealth of knowledge to guide and mentor others. And you are the life coach, and you are a business analyst and life coach on top of being an astronaut and training. Could you share a little bit about your values and how do you coach others and what is important?
I think it's really important to have routine and diligence and a perspective of what you want to achieve. I mean, there should be no boundaries. People should never say, well, when I reach this, that's when I reach the pinnacle of it. It's like, well, no, you should keep asking why you want to achieve that, why you want to go forward, where you want to go in life. And, you know, it's like a 5-year plan, but it's not, you should never narrow it down to 5 years. We're living longer, we're being healthier, we're more prosperous than we've ever been. And because of all those things, I think it's really important that we have a trajectory that we look forward to those kind of things. But of course, you need strong foundation. You can't set up a business without making sure you have the right team. I mean, team goals are very, very important. I mean, I love people who are entrepreneurial, but most of the most famous entrepreneurs in the world are those who have a successful team behind them, helping them launch.
And on the same subject, of course, there are so many elements in your life that are imposed on some of the decision making throughout your life. Are there any other key moments in your life that you feel greatly affected the way you see things and the person you are right now?
Oh, of course.
Spoken about it. And actually, I will move into the after you answer, I will move into the big C topic as well. So we'll touch on that.
Okay. Yeah.
About it as much as you want.
Yeah, I think that, you know, given that the diversity that I've had in my life, it's been projected forward purely because of all the unfortunate events that have happened. You know, I was in a relationship with someone who was very traumatic, and my escapism was to go to the office more and work harder and longer hours to escape that. But, you know, at the time, I just thought I was a workaholic, and that was a great escape. So all those things projected my life in a different manner because it was my out. It was my way of kind of coping with how my life was, which I think was a good thing in a silver lining. I'm a true believer in silver linings. Always look at something that's positive out of something that's negative. You'll always find something, no matter how depressed you might be.
I think it's also probably the mind that we put ourselves into, and just how we control and how we direct our own minds. And I will talk about it a little bit later because I do want to talk about the mental health in general. But Nicolina, you're surviving cancer person, and we must talk about this big one. I'm so grateful and thankful that you're not only alive, but you are thriving and you're living life to the fullest and more than fullest for any one of us. Can you please share, if you want, a little bit more about what happened?
Yeah. So I was first diagnosed with cervical cancer back in like 1998, I think it was. So then I had treatment. I originally had chemotherapy, and then they said it was fine, and it left. And then it came back again in 2002, and then I had chemo and radiation, and then they said it was fine. And then when it came back the third time, which I think was 2009, then I kind of lost a little bit of hope. I kept thinking, well, this hasn't worked so far. I don't see it working again. And mentally, I was not in a good space. And I think that's a big part of it. Like I curled up in a ball and I was like, I'm done. I was in a not great relationship with Antonia's father. Things were a bit rocky. I was feeling sick. I just wasn't great. And I just thought, what's the point? But I was really lucky. I was supported by an amazing doctor. And as much as my ex and I are not on great terms, he did find me a doctor that kind of helped me persevere through and find an avant-garde treatment. So I went to Germany and did dendritic cell treatment, which isn't commonly available to everybody. They're still in the testing phase, which they're still doing now, and I'm still a guinea pig for it. So whenever I'm in Europe, they're doing scans and blood works to keep checking if it comes back, because it's an ongoing process of doing it. But it was mind over matter. I mean, I was really very lucky. It was in Germany, and the doctors are not the most empathetic when it comes to bedside manner. I mean, at one point I was being a little bit hysterical. The nurse punched me in the arm to calm me down, which I will never forget, but it worked. But I had amazing friends who supported me, who were there for me, and I love them dearly for doing that. And they, the doctor turned around to me and said, you need to do something with your brain. You need to stop focusing on the cancer and you need to start focusing out of it. And if you can do something that accelerates your brain cells, do that. Learn a musical instrument, do a new language, do something that taps into another part of your brain.
Basically to detach yourself.
Yes, exactly.
Because we do that, we project also energy, and whatever we project comes back to us.
Well, that was it. I mean, I was very lucky. My friend was flying airplanes at the time, and he had said to me, oh, I'm flying planes. Why don't you come with me for a lesson to see if you like it? And I went to the airport, and I looked around and I went, no, that's boring. I want that. And it was helicopters next to it, and I went, I want to learn that instead.
That's right. You are a helicopter pilot as well. Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for mentioning this. Well, Nicolina, it's absolutely definitely life-changing experience. And how do you feel it has most affected you in terms of your life's outlook, in terms of your personality, and in terms of your relationship to others?
Well, I have to say a lot of people.
One of the best things that you do, you inspire others to conquer the challenges and to realize our dreams. So I would like you to share on that. What happened with your...
Really grateful that you acknowledge that. I think it's really important to be an advocate that, life shouldn't get you down. I mean, you can go through the worst case thing ever. I mean, you could think of the worst thing, and I've probably pretty much been there. And so for me, it's like, well, if I can survive this, then you can too. And it really is mind over matter. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm no angel. There's times where I'm just curled up in my bed and I'll have a girly moment and be crying and stuff my eyes, like going, that's it. I don't see the world today. And then the next morning comes and I get up, shake it off and have a shower and be like, right, get out, running shoes back on. Let's get the day going. So I think everybody has moments like that. It's about leaning into it and embracing it. You're allowed to be unhappy at times. And I love that mental health now is a massive thing that's spoken about. I mean, pre-pandemic, no one spoke about it. It was very much, oh, she's seeing a psychiatrist or they're seeing a therapist. And it was almost condescendingly looked upon. Whereas now, I love that everyone's embracing it. They're saying, okay, let's look at ways that we can change our mental health. Let's look at ways that we can be better people. Because if we can be softer, gentler, lovelier, kinder, compassionate people, the world is a much better place.
Absolutely. You know, what you've done in your life and what you survived, it obviously, besides the physical exhaustion, it's also very, very mentally taxing. And
but it's hard. It's hard to.
Please continue.
Yeah, it's been hard in relationships. I mean, obviously, when you're going through, and I'm sure other people who are listening to this, if they've experienced cancer, it's a traumatic experience. And no matter which way or which treatment you're doing, it's mentally very taxing. And so you can, you know, I got quite short-tempered with friends. My partner and Tony's father and I kind of dissipated after that. It was really hard for us to connect once more. It can be hard. A lot of relationships are really tested through it. And it's just a resilience. You're just going to have to say, okay, well, this is, you know, it made me want to be a better person. It made me say, well, I'm here for a reason. I had survivor's guilt for a little while because I have friends who passed away, unfortunately. And so that made me even more driven, saying, well, I'm here for a reason. I have to prove this. I have to do something. I have to make sure that they know that I'm doing this for a reason.
And did the fears begin? Just like, you know, probably obviously on a different level from being an astronaut and training, and with regards to you being a cancer survivor, how did you deal with fears?
I think I pushed myself into it. I mean, I remember as a child being scared of heights, which bamboozles my mind now because I actually love pushing myself on really high adrenaline things. So when I was a child, I was petrified. But I think also when we're growing up, people push all these thoughts on us and tell us that we're scared. Oh, no, you can't do this. You'll be scared. Oh, you can't, you know, and people are pushing you into that category. And I think I'm just trying to break away from that mold and say, well, why am I scared of that? Why, what is the worst case scenario that can happen? Okay, this might break. Okay, well, if that breaks, what happens? I'm going to break my leg. Okay, well, that can be fixed. So I'm not going to, you know, so I'm not going to die if I fall off, like, you know, standing on a chair. So all these little things, you kind of rationalize it a little bit. But I also like adrenaline. I'm definitely, there's no question, I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie, so.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And what is your advice, or a few advices for anyone who's struggling with their health, be it physical or mental, or life struggle in general?
To reach out, to really reach out. I think that's the most important. I think I always lived in a place of shame, thinking that when I was sick, it was my fault, or when things happened to me, it was my fault. And I would curl up and be really scared about it. And I think the biggest thing that helped me get over everything was when I reach out to my friends and just be like, hey, I'm sorry, this is happening to me. I'm not in a good headspace. Can you please just like empathize with me a little bit? And it's amazing how people react. Like most people will rally around, be empathetic. They may be a little bit distant, but maybe that's what you need too. Sometimes that's what people need, is just to share that and offload it and be distant from it. But I think it's really, really important to talk about things. I think hiding things inside internally can create more dysfunction and more trauma inside.
Exactly. And perhaps exaggerated thoughts that might be dispersed through talking to people who genuinely want to help you. If there is anything else that you would like to share with our viewers tonight?
I don't know, there was so many things. I was writing notes about what I wanted to talk about. And it was just like this, I could talk for hours and hours and hours. I mean, we could literally sit here for like all day and all night.
Hours and hours.
Yeah, I don't know. There was like the G-force training and all this. I think it's really important the girls support other girls. I think it's really important that women support other women. I think it's about learning to be non-judgmental, and that's the biggest challenge, because people are automatically like, oh, she's wearing this, or she's doing that, or how did she get here, or what is she doing that way? And I think it's about learning to stop being like that. So the minute you project that on someone, that's when you need to take a breath and say, why am I thinking that? Am I projecting on them because I'm feeling that insecurity? And I think that's really important, that people just need to take a breather and just support one another. It's really important.
One another, really, just in probably loyalty and kindness and sincerity, in my opinion, plays a huge role. I'm a huge advocate, and it's very important for me in any relationship.
Yeah, I think authenticity and compassion.
Exactly, exactly. Well, Nicolina, it's been such a rich conversation. Also, you said, and I'm confirming, I would love to talk to you for hours and hours, and we certainly do that. And thank you so much for joining us today. Please, all of our wonderful listeners, please follow Nicolina on her social media and follow her journey and her incredible advances in so many ways. At her Instagram, it's the real Nicolina at the end, and to just watch her journey as an astronaut in training and just wonderful human being. Thank in general. Uh, I wish you all the best in your adventures, and I can't wait to hear more and to see you more, as we said that short notice works. Um, thank you. And to all of you, our listeners, the conversation will be recorded. I will be posting it on my Instagram at Events by Olga. I will also post it on a YouTube channel. You just give me a few days to do that, so you can follow me on YouTube under Olga Elrick for the conversations with Olga. All the episodes are there, so it's on my IG. And please go ahead and watch other people talking about their own journeys and dreams in their life. And I'm wishing everyone a very, very happy holidays. Happy Hanukkah for people who celebrate Hanukkah. Merry Christmas for everyone who celebrates Christmas. And of course, happy and healthy and peaceful New Year to all of you, my dear friends.
Thank you, Olga. And thank you everyone else for listening. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.